Welcome back, everyone. If you're the kind of focused learner who loves diving into history's most compelling figures, well, you are definitely in the right place. In today's explainer, we're embarking on this truly epic journey of a young woman who looked at the most powerful empire on Earth and completely defied them. We're going to be exploring the life, the battles, and the absolute immortality of Rani Lakshmibai during the 1857 rebellion in India. So get ready because her story is honestly nothing short of incredible. Now, what's truly fascinating about this quote is who actually said it. You might assume this came from one of her loyal followers, right? Nope. This is from British General Sir Hugh Rose. That's right, her direct enemy. The British Empire literally considered her to be their most dangerous adversary during the entire uprising. To understand how she earned this profound, kind of fearful respect from the very military force trying to destroy her, we've got to rewind the clock a bit and look at her beginnings. Section 1. An unusual upbringing. Because, to understand the warrior, you really have to understand the child first. So, picture the early 19th century. A young girl's life back then was typically pretty confined, heavily structured around domestic expectations. But the reality for a girl born in Varanasi in 1828 named Manikarnika Tambe, affectionately known as Manu, well, her life shattered that mold entirely. Her father worked in the court of the Peshwa, and she received an upbringing that defied all the conventions of the time. We're talking horse riding, sword fighting, archery, and martial arts. She grew up with this incredible, unshakable confidence. And this wasn't just some hobby. As we're going to see, this highly unusual martial upbringing perfectly prepared her for the immense challenges that were headed her way. Section 2. The threat to Jhansi. So how exactly did Manu become the Queen of Jhansi, and what put her kingdom directly in the crosshairs of an empire? The crucial turning point here revolves around something called the doctrine of lapse. Let me give you some quick context. In 1842, Manu married Gangadhar Rao, who was the ruler of the northern Indian state of Jhansi, and she officially became Rani Lakshmibai. They were a deeply respected royal couple, but tragedy just struck them relentlessly. Their infant son died shortly after birth, and by 1853, her husband, the king, also passed away. Now, before he died, they had adopted a child, Damodar Rao, to be the rightful heir to the throne. But the British East India Company under Lord Dalhousie had instituted this specific policy, the doctrine of lapse. Basically, they used this loophole to completely ignore her adopted son's claim to the throne. This allowed them to step in and legally annex Jhansi entirely. This brilliantly illustrates the ultimate turning point of her life. Faced with the complete erasure of her kingdom and her son's birthright, Rani Lakshmibai didn't back down for a second. She famously declared, "I shall not surrender my Jhansi." Talk about a powerful inciting incident. In this exact moment, she transforms from a grieving widow navigating the loss of her entire family into this defiant, unyielding leader ready to take on the entire British East India Company. Of course, this personal defiance soon collided with a massive national uprising. Section 3. The 1857 Rebellion. The pace of this escalation is just breathtaking. Following her marriage in 42 and the tragic application of that doctrine of lapse in 53, a massive rebellion breaks out across northern and central India in 1857. You have Indian soldiers, rulers, and civilians all rising up against British political oppression, their unfair policies, and constant cultural interference. Rani Lakshmibai is swept right up into this tidal wave of revolt. By 1858, the British bring the war directly to her doorstep, violently attacking the fort of Jhansi. In just a few short years, her life completely shifted from royal stability to leading a desperate full-scale war. I want you to picture this for a second because it is such a visceral, legendary image. When British forces besieged Jhansi in 1858, they brought powerful weapons, heavy cannons, the whole shebang. Rani Lakshmibai was heavily outnumbered, but she organized her army and flat out refused to surrender. Historical accounts and legends paint this awe-inspiring picture of her. A queen with her adopted son tied securely to her back, riding her horse directly into the utter chaos of battle, literally wielding swords in both hands. She was personally leading her troops, fighting fiercely right there on the front lines to defend her home. Now, the British did eventually breach Jhansi, but guess what? They didn't capture the queen. Her strategic brilliance unfolded in 3 super daring phases. First, she pulled off this incredible escape from the fallen fort. Next, rather than just surrendering in defeat, she forged a powerful alliance with other major rebel leaders, like Tantia Tope. Finally, together, wearing warrior clothing and fighting right alongside her soldiers, they launched a massive campaign and captured the highly strategic city of Gwalior. This was a huge victory for the rebels, and it proved she wasn't just a brave fighter on the ground, she was a brilliant military strategist capable of completely outmaneuvering colonial forces. Sadly, this incredible momentum, well, it couldn't last forever. Section 4. The Final Battle. June 1858. 29. I really want that number to sink in for a second. Just 29. In June 1858, the British launched a fierce, relentless counterattack near Gwalior, and Rani Lakshmibai, absolutely true to her nature, fearlessly entered the battlefield once again. During the intense fighting, she was seriously wounded, but she continued to resist until her very last breath. She died on June 18, 1858. She was only 29 years old when she fell resisting the British. I mean, the sheer magnitude of what she achieved, the literal armies she led, and the empire she shook all before her 30th birthday. It is just astounding. And here's the thing. Even in death, she refused to give the British a victory. Her absolute dying wish was that the British would never, ever capture her body. Her loyal followers honored this final act of defiance by performing her last rites completely in secret. So the British may have won the battle that day, but they could never claim the Queen of Jhansi. Which brings us to why her death wasn't the end of her story, but really the beginning of her immortality. Section 5. An enduring legacy. Today, she represents so much more than just a historical figure. Rani Lakshmibai completely shattered the image of what a woman in the 19th century could be. She proved, without a doubt, that women were equally capable of military leadership, profound bravery, and ultimate sacrifice. She became this towering symbol of resistance against oppression, a real beacon of patriotism, and an icon of fearless determination. Her story went on to deeply inspire the future freedom fighters who would eventually secure India's independence nearly a century later. Her cultural impact is woven deeply into the fabric of South Asian history. Through art, striking statues of her on horseback, and literature, her spirit is kept incredibly alive today. There's this famous poem excerpts that perfectly captures how she's remembered. Khoob ladi mardani, wo tu Jhansi wali Rani thi. Translated, that means she fought bravely like a warrior. She was the Queen of Jhansi. It's one of those lines that continues to give goosebumps to millions of people, celebrating a legacy that colonial powers could absolutely never erase. Which leaves us with a final thought to wrap up today's explainer. Rani Lakshmibai fought the world's greatest empire with absolutely unwavering courage, even when the odds were completely, totally impossible. She used every single skill she had, she stood her ground, and she left a mark on history that will never be forgotten. So, I leave you with this question. In the face of your own impossible challenges, how are you going to channel the fearless, determined spirit of the Queen of Jhansi? Definitely something to think about. Thank you so much for exploring this incredible history with me today, and as always,